Hi again, Mark here from Talkingbass. This week we're going to take a look at 20 great channels on YouTube for learning bass guitar. Now, I know what you're thinking, why would a bass channel like mine openly advertise all the other bass channels out there? Well, I think it's incredibly important when learning to play an instrument that you look for instruction and influence from as many sources as possible. If you stick rigidly to the first channel that you find, you could be missing out on a whole load of great information and practice material that's out there. Just because one channel is great for teaching songs doesn't mean you'll necessarily get all you need in terms of theory. Some channels might give brilliant tips on slapping, but not so much in terms of walking bass or reading. The 20 channels that I'm listing here are in no particular order, so I'm not ranking any higher than the others. All of the channels listed are great in their own way, and I'd recommend you checking them all out. The list is there in the description below with links so you can check them all out directly. It's also worth mentioning that these channels had to be actively releasing content. So some of the great channels such as the Tony Gray Bass Academy, Cambridge Bass Lessons, Marlow DK, Low End University and Music College TV aren't on the list. I'll also be giving an honourable mention to some general bass channels at the end of the video, so don't worry, all you Davey 504 fans are going to be getting a shout out. Okay, for bass channel number 1 we have, wait for it, Talkingbass. Now, I was unsure whether to put myself in this list, seeing as it's my list and you're watching the channel already. But let's just get me out of the way. So, as most of you know, I'm Mark J. Smith, and here at Talkingbass, I teach everything from beginner bass to music reading to harmony to ear training, slapping, tapping, and everything in between. The channel's been around for about 7 years now, so there's quite a backlog of over 350 lessons, and you're likely to see my lessons coming up whenever you put a search in for lessons on pretty much any bass topic. The channel is the YouTube front for the Talkingbass website, where you'll find a wide variety of huge premium courses dedicated to bigger specific areas of bass playing like reading music, chord tones, ear training, and much, much more. There's also a totally free membership area containing a wide variety of bass practice resources and downloads. So check out the lessons here, and then if you like the channel, you'll love the website. Next up, for number 2, we have a channel that needs no introduction, Scott's Bass Lessons. Scott's Bass Lessons has been around for about 10 years now and is easily the most popular bass education channel on YouTube. The Scott in question is professional bass player Scott Devine, and as you can probably tell by our accents, Scott and I hail from the same area. In fact, Scott and I have been good friends since the 1990s, long before the advent of YouTube or any of our online adventures. Scott's Bass Lessons is basically the YouTube front for the SBL Academy. SBL is a membership-based website and education resource where you can find a whole bunch of great online bass courses by both Scott himself and a variety of other great bass players. Now, we're obviously talking about YouTube channels here, so in sticking with the SBL YouTube material, you can expect to find regular complete bass lessons from Scott, as well as excerpts from lessons from some of the Academy faculty members and clips from some of the great interviews taken from the SBL podcast. It's a great all-round place for getting a fix of weekly bass action, so for the few of you out there that don't already know about it or haven't already subscribed, it's an obvious first stop YouTube channel. At number 3, we have Bass Buzz. Now, Josh Fosgreen has been around on the YouTube scene for quite a few years, but his latest channel, Bass Buzz, is relatively new, having started about 2 years ago. Josh is a great bass player with a cool, light-hearted and humorous approach to teaching. I love the way that Josh presents, and Bass Buzz content is always really entertaining. It's a great resource for bass beginners in particular, so if you're just starting out on bass, definitely check out Josh and Bass Buzz. Next up, we have number 4, Cover Solutions. Now, this isn't a bass education channel per se, but instead focuses solely on demonstrating covers of pretty much every tune that you can think of. There's no talking, just playing, and every song is accompanied by on-screen tab. The bass player is Sebastian Sanhueza, who does a great job of transcribing and playing the bass lines that you see. So if you're wanting to learn a song and need some guidance, Cover Solutions is a great resource. At number 5, we have Daric Bennett. Daric is an awesome bass player with incredible chops and a wonderful on-screen persona. He provides great lessons on all areas of bass playing, but most important of all, he helps to motivate students with his infectious love of music and playing. I've interviewed Daric here on Talkingbass, and he's just an all-round cool guy. Daric has been a part of the gospel music scene since he was a child, so if you're looking to work on those gospel chops, then Daric is your man. Most of the channels in this list feature guys, and that's simply because there's a much higher percentage of male bass education channels. But next at number 6 we have one of the few ladies here on the list, Julia Hofer. Now Julia is the bass lesson side of the Thomann Music Store and their YouTube channel. Julia is a fabulous bass player with a great style of presentation. Thomann is obviously very bass gear orientated, but Julia mixes in many different topics from song breakdowns to informative lessons on all aspects of bass. Next at number 7 we have the brilliant Janek Gwizdala. Now Janek is a bass virtuoso of the highest order and an absolutely sublime improviser. He's played alongside legends such as Mike Stern and Randy Brecker and released many incredible albums as a solo artist. But as well as a recording and touring musician, Janek also runs a successful YouTube channel and bass education site. There have been vlogs allowing you to access Janek's touring world and intense practice routines. There's a great pedal show in which he demonstrates a wide variety of different effects, both modern and vintage, and a whole host of different lessons and Q&A sessions on many aspects of playing. Janek has been on the YouTube scene for a long time and has both brilliant production values and a super accessible approach to content that might initially seem out of reach to many of us mere mortals. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of Janek's playing, so if you want to turbocharge your practice and you haven't visited his channel, you're in for a treat. Next up, at number 8, we have the legendary black belt of bass tuition, Joe Hubbard. Joe has been at the top of the bass education tree for pretty much the last 40 years. His ex-students are a who's who of bass and include none other than the great Pino Palladino. Joe has an absolutely no-nonsense approach to bass education and stresses the importance of traditional music learning from reading through to jazz harmony, improvisation and ear training. Joe releases regular lessons on his YouTube channel and has dedicated courses and books for download over at his website. If you want to really develop your skills as an all-round professional bass player, Joe's channel is an absolute goldmine. At number 9, we have another bass legend in the shape of Jeff Berlin. Jeff is a huge name in the bass world, having taken bass technique and improvisation to the next level during the 1970s and 80s. He's played with hundreds of artists in all styles as a session musician and released many solo albums, all featuring his fluid legato solos and innovative chordal style. As a teacher, Jeff is very much in the same mold as Joe Hubbard, in that he preaches a very strict academic approach, heavily influenced by his classical violin studies and his private lessons with the legendary Charlie Banacos. Again, it's a very no-nonsense approach based on the fundamental principles of reading and academic study, so if you're looking to develop a deep foundation in bass and music skills, then Jeff is the man. His YouTube channel, the Jeff Berlin Music Group, contains many lessons that aim to demystify and remove a lot of the fluff from music learning. You'll learn perfectly written walking bass lines, scalar lines, tips on tone, technique, and much more. Then, if you like what you see, you can go to the Jeff Berlin Music Group website and download one of his many music education packages. Next up, at number 10, we have Anthony Muthurajah. Anthony is another world-class bass player from India with incredible technique and improvisation skills. His channel features lessons on many aspects of playing, and he presents everything in a very laid-back manner, while packing even short videos with a huge amount of useful material and content. His playing is absolutely jaw-dropping at times, but every lesson breaks down the principles that he's using into simple, easy-to-understand chunks. Anthony's channel is one of my own personal favourites right now, so go check him out and prepare to be amazed. At number 11, we actually have two channels, Artistworks and Truefire. Now, the reason that I've included both here is because they're very similar in nature and feature a number of different bass players. Neither of the channels are dedicated to bass. They include lessons on a wide variety of different instruments, but I had to include them because there are some absolute legends of bass over there. The YouTube channels are basically a shop window for the Artistworks and Truefire websites. Artistworks has bass lessons with both double bass players John Patitucci and Missy Raines, and electric bass lessons with Nathan East. So that's some bass royalty right there. Then Truefire has a huge number of bass courses from the likes of Stu Ham, Tony Franklin, Andy Irvine, and another important lady of bass education, Ariane Kapp. The YouTube channels feature individual lessons taken from the full website courses, so with such a huge amount of content, you're likely to find some great videos there at both channels. Next up for number 12, we have Become a Bassist. This is the channel from fabulous bass player and teacher Luke McIntosh. You'll find lessons on a wide variety of different topics for beginners to advanced, all presented in a laid-back and very comprehensive manner. Like Talkingbass and SBL, Luke has been around for quite a while now on the YouTube scene, so there's a huge backlog of lessons to browse. You'll find lessons on technique, scales, slap, bassline creation, and much more. Just go to the channel and dive into all the content over there. At number 13, we have the Bass Wizard. Now, just in case you're wondering who the Bass Wizard is, it's Marcello Feldman, and yes, he is in fact a bass wizard. He's got all the bass tricks that you might expect from a bass wizard. He slaps, taps, and plays beautiful chordal solo arrangements. But beyond that, he also provides content in a lot of other bass areas. There are a bunch of gear reviews and many lessons and tips on a variety of bass topics, which can often be based around real-life gigging situations. He's been around for quite some time now, so there's plenty of videos to work through. At number 14, we have Jayme Lewis. Now, Jayme has had a YouTube channel for many years now and has a ton of content. He's a great bass player with lots of advice on playing, gigging, and everything bass related. As well as a diverse array of lessons, he also has a great podcast in which he interviews bass players in every style. He's had Adam Neely, Evan Marion, Daric Bennett, Joe Hubbard, Scott Devine, and many more sit down and talk bass with him, and I'd highly recommend those interviews. Like I said, Jayme's a wicked bass player, and his advice is always pulled from his professional gigging experience. At number 15, we have Stuart Clayton's channel, which is pretty much the YouTube side of his company Bassline Publishing. For those of you that don't know, Bassline Publishing is one of the premier dedicated bass book companies, and many of these books are written by Stuart himself. Stuart is a virtuoso bass player and master transcriber, and you'll find perfectly written collections of pieces from the likes of Mark King, Stu Ham, Stuart Zender, Marcus Miller, and more. There are also books on specific areas of playing like music reading, tapping, slapping, and everything in between. Stuart's YouTube channel contains extracts from his books as well as detailed breakdowns of a variety of cool different bass lines. He has a great way of explaining concepts and techniques, and he's also a super lovely guy, which really comes across in his videos. For number 16, we have MannyBass, or Manny's Bass Lessons. This is the channel of the wonderful Juan Manuel Vasquez, or MannyBass for short. Manny has virtuoso chops and specialises in Latin bass concepts. His lessons are presented in both English and Spanish, which allows him to really open up to that demographic. Manny covers many areas of bass playing, including applied harmony concepts, but he also offers breakdowns of Latin charts from more basic bass lines all the way through to petrifying virtuoso melodies. So if you want some modern Latin bass lessons, Manny is a great option. At number 17, we have E-Bass Guitar. This is the bass channel of James Eager. James presents regular bass lessons on all aspects of bass playing and is especially good for beginner to intermediate players. He covers all of the basics of scales, arpeggios, walking, and general bass playing, as well as advice on all areas of bass playing and practice. He's very thorough in his presentation and keeps everything very simple at every stage. So if you want some straight ahead bass tips without any of the fluff, then James is a great guy to watch. Next, at 18, we have another much needed female bass teacher by way of Basslady. Basslady is the channel of Agape Blessing, a Nigerian-born bass player who covers many areas of bass playing and technique, but specialises in gospel playing. There's a ton of content to watch. She's a great player, and everything is presented in a very laid-back, informal way that I really like. So go check out Basslady, especially if you want some tips on gospel or African music. For number 19, we have Real Bass Lessons. This is the channel of bass player Jim Stinnett. Jim is a former bass professor of Berklee College of Music and is probably the most accessible teaching manner of any bass teacher ever. Jim is a superb player and master teacher, and when combined with his lovely personality, it makes for a totally absorbing experience. The channel has several hundred videos to work through, and he covers everything from the basics through to advanced soloing. And for number 20, we have the fabulous Travis Dykes. Travis is a working pro bassist from Nashville. He's got a great channel providing lessons and advice very much in the gospel and funk styles. He's a fabulous bass player with a wicked personality, and it all makes for a really cool channel. As well as lessons, he also gives tips on every aspect of working as a pro bass player. I love Travis. Travis is awesome. Go check him out. So that's 20 of the biggest and best bass lesson channels here on YouTube. If I've missed any out, be sure to let me know in the comments below. I'm sure that I've missed out a few, but remember I've purposely listed those that are actively posting content. There are some really big channels out there that haven't had any new content for quite a while, so I've tried to be quite up to date. Now, as I mentioned at the start, I've also got a few honourable mentions for some channels that aren't educational, but might provide quite a bit of inspiration and entertainment from all the bass-related content. First on the list is obviously Davey504. Davey is far and away the most popular bass player on YouTube right now and has legions of fans, many of which don't actually play bass. He's been around for quite some time now and has nearly 9 million subscribers as of 2020. The content is very comedic and zany, but underneath all of the memes and hilarious antics, Davey504 has some wicked chops. So if you want some entertaining bass action and you're one of the 10 people on planet Earth that hasn't seen him, go check him out. Also on this list we have Charles Berthoud. Charles has really hit the big time on YouTube over the past year or two after featuring in a few of Davey504's bass battle vids and being labelled the Pro. Now, I'd known about Charles for quite a long time prior to that, having seen many of the great solo videos on his channel. Charles is a virtuoso with awesome chops, especially from a tapping and slapping perspective. But beyond all the flash, the thing that I love about Charles is his musicality. The solo compositions that he creates are simply stunning and always written from a music-first standpoint. So if you're looking to see some stunning playing alongside some hilarious entertainment, go check out Charles Berthoud, the Pro. I obviously couldn't finish this list without mentioning Adam Neely. Adam is another YouTube phenom that started with a general bass lesson channel which gradually morphed into an all-round music and music theory website that now has millions of subscribers and views. He touches on pretty much every area of music, theory and composition, and occasionally brings some bass back into play. Adam is immensely talented and I've had the pleasure of interviewing him here on Talking Bass, so if you haven't seen Adam's channel, be sure to check it out and prepare to have your mind blown. Another bass channel that should be on the favourites list of every bass player out there is BassTheWorld. BassTheWorld features regular demonstrations of basses, amps and pedals alongside videos of featured bass players in performance. Any of you into pedals will have seen plenty of BassTheWorld's content, and it's a great place to see all the latest gear demonstrated by top bass players. Finally, I also have to mention one of my personal favourite bass players on planet Earth, and that's Federico Malaman. Federico is a total virtuoso bass player who has a channel that features his outrageous playing as well as a variety of tips and lessons. It's less of a bass education site, but I had to mention it here because he is so incredibly talented. So that's some cool YouTube channels for you to check out. As I said, I've probably missed a bunch of people out and I'm really sorry to anyone that I overlooked. If you think of any, just pop them down in the comments and let me know which are your personal faves. So as always, just like, subscribe and hit that bell. Then check out the Talking Bass website for hundreds of lessons and premium courses on every topic imaginable. Okay? I'll see you next week.